Hello, 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 guys. Welcome again with our Sunday Live. My name is Italo. I'm the director, one of the directors of the coaching direction. We are bringing here every Sunday that we could a live with a team, something, a topic, anything that you guys want to discuss. Today I'm with Siddiq again, my colleague and one of the directors of the coaching direction as well. Then we're going to talk about time management. Hello, Siddiq. How are you?
Hi, Italo. How are you doing? You okay?
Good, good. And so what we're going to happen today, me and Siddiq will talk you through about time management, a matrix really interesting that Siddiq brings up regarding the urgent and important things. And as always, have a wee chat here with you guys just to explain a little bit more about this topic. Right? And you, Siddiq, wants to add anything regarding it?
No, I just think it's an important topic, particularly given the sort of change of circumstances. People are been in lockdown. They're now sort of trying to customize to being outside of lockdown, and having a routine can be difficult. So time management, I think, is more important than ever. And it's always a topical issue in any event, but I think in particular it's very important now.
Yeah. For sure, for sure. It was always important. Now it's really important again because all the values changed. So here we go. Effective time management and the important and urgent matrix that we had spoken before. Here we go. And now just moving on for the first part is measuring the time.
Yeah. So before we actually move on to the important urgent matrix, as you're aware, that's sort of the essence of time management, and we'll probably spend a bit longer on that. I just wanted to cover some of the introduction about how we see time. So there's different ways of measuring time. I mean, there's obviously the day, so that's measured by sort of externally one rotation of the Earth. Within that time frame, we're normally focusing on urgent tasks. The way we tend to monitor that is normally by checking our watches or our phones to see what the time is, or our PCs. We're generally looking at the time on a daily basis to think about what we need to do that day. The next way in which we measure time tends to be on a weekly basis. So that will normally be by way of a calendar, seeing what you need to do in a particular week, normally used with task lists. That's quite effective. And then the next one is monthly. That's the time, again, looking externally, that's the time it takes for the moon to circle the Earth. We will often have monthly targets, and we normally measure that sort of time by looking at our calendars. There may be physical calendars or on our phones or on our PCs. And then the next one is annually. That's the time it takes for the Earth to circle the sun. And with that, we'll be using year planners. We may have New Year's resolutions, annual reviews, and maybe even setting coaching goals. I think the main point here is to focus on is it's important to choose the right measure for the right sort of activity. And one thing we find generally is that people usually tend to overestimate what they can do in a day, but underestimate what they can do in a week. So it's important to understand the particular task that you have. What's the appropriate measure for it? Is it something I need to measure on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, monthly or annually? And I think if you choose the right measure of time, you're going to be more effective in getting that thing done.
That is totally true. And we have other ones that's really important as well. The measure of time. There is the financial year, isn't it?
Yes.
Indeed.
Yeah, that's another one. Yeah.
There's really another one when it comes to companies. Not just something that is related to the spinning and everything, or the Earth, or seasons, or the moon cycle, but actually something that's regulated by the government, and to say how much is it, right? And moving on, and have like the concept of time.
Again, it's a very interesting concept and something that I've always been fascinated about. So there's a verse in the Quran which says that mankind is in a state of loss, and then except for certain categories of people, and then it specifies certain categories of people who use their time in a particular way. And I think that's really powerful because it's starting all the time, feeling like we're short of time. And even when we feel like we've got a lot of time, it seems to sort of get away from us. So I think that's a really powerful verse that really just captures our relationship to time itself. And in a way, we sort of assume that unless we're proactively doing something, we're not going to be able to manage it properly. So I think that's a really good starting point. And it's interesting that the verse is called Asr, and Asr is the time which is about 1.5 to 2 hours before sunset. And I think that's also really crucial because that tends to be the time of day when you sort of realize the day is starting to come to an end. I've got to make the most of it. Obviously, once you get sunset, then you realize, okay, it's gone now. The next day is going to come along. But there as well, you become visually conscious because perhaps the light's starting to go down. So I've given a few examples. For example, if you're outside, you might think, okay, well, we need to take shelter, or when are we going to reach our destination if you're on a journey. I do a lot of cycling as well. So that sort of time, you're probably talking about, okay, when are we going to head back? I might do a cycle run for about 30 miles or something. So you'll be thinking, okay, well, it's going to take us an hour or so to get back. What time we'll be starting to head back? Also working in an office as well, you'll be looking at post about 4 or 5 o'clock. You want to meet the post deadlines. I work as a lawyer as well in litigation, dealing with court deadlines. Court deadlines tend to be to 4 p.m. So again, that time of day, you're starting to think, okay, look, I've got to get this done now. Time's moving away from me. So I think that's a really important aspect of it as well. And like I said above, we don't tend to appreciate time until it's gone. And therefore, there are a number of tools that you can use to really make the most of that. So in coaching, we have the rocking chair test where we sort of look ahead in time and think, okay, well, just imagine you've lived your life, you're elderly, you're sitting on your rocking chair, you're telling people about what you've achieved in your life. What would you want to tell them? And try and see that from a present state perspective, and then try and create the life you want as if you were in that rocking chair, but thinking, okay, this is what I want to create for that moment. And again, the Quran as well, it focuses a lot of time as well, and it speaks about death a lot, but not so much in a very negative way, but thinking about where we're headed, and therefore focusing people to make the most of life and appreciate the value of life. So again, it's a similar approach there as well, realizing it's going to be gone and therefore grasping it and really trying to make the most of it. And the Quran says as well that people will want to live their life again and focus on the correct things and want to come back. And the point is, like we do in coaching as well, just focus on understanding that and living life now with that mindset rather than regretting it later on. And it's linked very much to the value of hindsight as well. So there's a lot of films out there as well. I really enjoy films about sort of time travel. There's things like Back to the Future or The Butterfly Effect, and very much it's as if people who find themselves in particular situations and then they're trying to go back in time to try and rectify the situation. And hindsight's a valuable thing, but quite often with these techniques, we're trying to anticipate what could happen and really live the life now rather than wait for that moment and try and correct what we're doing. So, but it's interesting because unless we make those positive efforts, I feel like we tend to have that relationship with time where we're trying to catch up or we're trying to rectify something after the event.
Yeah, for sure. We have you mentioned the butterfly effect and everything. I think one of them that I like as well is the case of Benjamin Button. Is the one who is actually the reverse, the different thing for instance, like you have like all the old stuff and then you start to be young again and everything. This is pretty good. For sure, it's just nothing that is going to happen for real. Nothing in the circle of the life happens in this way, but it's just interesting how to see it. And then the rocking chair that you mentioned is really important. So like what I will be willing to achieve when I come to this point, what I will want to have as a memory, what I want to build up, what I want to do. And then for sure, deadlines, it's a great motivator. We have deadlines. We know that's it. And then death is the deadline for life. So once you already come into it, you're like, okay, time is going and it's not forever. It's have a limit and then things change. And now it's more constant, not constant, but it's more present now because we have like the being afraid because of the whole coronavirus outbreak that happened, everybody was like threatening, like, oh my God, I have to take careful precaution with if I'm wearing masks or not, if I'm cleaning my hands or not, people that is around me or not, and then spending quality time to see what's happening. So indeed, it's just deadlines, and then the thing that keeps could be a really high stress, but could as well be a motivator. So like, okay, I have the time limit here. I need to focus. I need to do something, or not, or change it. But the time frame is this one. I have to do in this time frame, otherwise.
And I think what was mentioned on the first slide is relevant there. Picking the appropriate time frame for the activity, so that you use it effectively rather than becoming really stressed because you've given it the wrong time frame.
Exactly. That's the thing. Right. Moving on. You're saying about my approach?
Yeah.
Or your
I thought I'd just pick out. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure they're not unique to me, but I thought I'd just pick out a few things that I do, which I find quite helpful. So my approach generally is a variety of the spice of life. I tend to get bored of doing one activity for too long at a time. So I try to mix things around, try and bring a lot of variety in my life. And that way it just keeps things fresh and different. And your mindset as well, this is what I find, tends to be a lot more engaged in whatever you're doing if you sort of changing the activity every few hours, compared with if you're just stuck with one thing, your mind can become quite stale. So that's one thing I do. And the second point, this is a big topic, which I could talk about at length, but I'll try and keep it brief. One of my principles is learn from the past, live in the present, and prepare for the future. Because most people tend to either overemphasize the past mistakes and get lost in that and just end up reliving that. And a lot of other people are just thinking about the future, but not really in a tangible way, just thinking, oh, someday, one day I'll do this. One of the courses I did, that was one of the examples they gave about someday, one day mentality, where unless you're really conscious about what you're going to achieve, that will never happen. So the focus is, fine, the past is important, but you learn from it. The future is important, but you prepare for it. But your life actually takes place in the present, and that's where you really want to focus. And I've been studying NLP recently as well about the different ways of viewing time. So where you have some people have in time compared with through time. So some people see time as a horizontal line from sort of left to right, where those people tend to be a lot better at managing their time, but they can tend to focus a bit too much on past mistakes and not be as present as they possibly could. Where the other time is through time, where I think I've got that the right way around, where people see time more as a line going through them. So those people tend to be a lot more present in the moment, but they can often make the same mistakes over and over again. So there's advantages of both approaches, but I think one thing that's important to understand is people will view time in their head in different ways, and therefore there's not a one size fits all test, which is why I haven't given percentages as to how much time you should spend in each of those areas. They're more guidelines because people do see time in different ways, and it's important that if you are following any sort of time management scheme, you follow something that works in terms of your own frame of mind and what works best for you. And again, just leading on from that, as when in coaching, we tend to focus most of the time on the immediate present, i.e. the next few weeks, where we are now and where we want to be within that time frame. And we also learn on our coaching that if people are thinking too far ahead, just try to narrow them down for the next few weeks, because it's very hard to be very focused on exactly what you're going to be doing beyond that time frame. Another example for me as well, as I work as a lawyer, time is money, as they say, and we have to record all of our time.
Yes.
There are sort of pros and cons of that. I always try and look at the benefits of things. So one benefit is that you do become very aware of how you're spending your time and the value that you're getting back. So for example, I do work at different cost bands. So I want to maximize the time I spend doing the higher value work compared with the lower value work. So it's really important to have that perspective. And I just find that naturally I tend to do that in other aspects of my life as well. Be conscious of how much time I'm spending and how much benefit that time is going to give me, and whether or not I should perhaps spend less time doing one thing and spend more time doing something else. And another thing is multitasking as well. I don't think it's exclusive to women. I think one thing I find quite useful is combining physical and intellectual activities. So for example, whilst I'm preparing food, I'm normally listening to a podcast or some sort of training, or even when I'm eating, something like that, because, or even when I'm sort of getting changed, organizing my clothes, doing housework, because those are things that don't occupy my mind. But at the same time, like whilst I'm using my mind, I just don't just want to be sitting idly. So that's quite a helpful technique I find to, in a way, kill two birds with one stone.
Yes, definitely. And I totally agree with you. Mood tasking is not specific to women, but that's the society pushing the woman to always to be mood tasking. And then they are taking advantage of it now, that they have the whole life thing from the being multitask. And that's why women now are on the top of site managers, department managers, branches, countries, leaders, because they do have to do this skill about mood tasking and be the next slide is going to be that urgent and important. They are more aware of it than us. There was like, okay, hammer here, nail the hammer, boom, boom, and then box by box, every single little by little. But yes, the whole thing about learning with the past is really important, and do not give so much. The past is only good if you learn something. If it's something that holds you down, it's not exactly what the meaning of having a past or a story of. It's not like to be like regretting about something, but you actually learn with something that you did that was possibly not good or not what you expected. But then from it, learn and move on. It's the way that it works.
Like this is stop beating yourself up about something.
Exactly.
That's the mindset.
Yeah. Right. And then comes to the matrix of the important against urgent matrix.
Yeah. So I think this is really the essence of sort of time management, and we'll probably spend a bit longer talking about this. In the important urgent matrix, it basically divides things into 4 different types of categories, and I think I have touched on this in some of my other live feeds as well. Yeah. So that's pretty much sort of the urgent important things, which are they've got to be done, and they've got to be done in a short time frame. So just going back to the first slide, these are probably going to be things that you've got to do that day. You've got to knock them out. They've got to be prioritized. But the thing is, because in our mind we tend to acknowledge that normally those things do get done because you have that constant kind of drive to get them done. As long as you understand they're in that category, your subconscious mind will help you get them done. Then you have urgent non-important, which this tends to be things that are interruptions. There's still things on a daily basis, but there'll be things like phone calls, emails. I'd say people come into your office, but that's not happening so much now. But sorry, could you just move back to the last slide?
Yes, for sure. Oh, sorry about that. I changed it.
Yeah, no worries. But the point being is that although those things are immediate, they're not as important. They're not going to gain you as much benefit. So it's about managing those things around the other things, because that tends to be the most problematic area, because those can very easily just take over your day. And sometimes you get people saying, like, I've just been like checking emails all day, and you feel like they haven't been productive because that's just taken over. So I think those activities is good to just sort of manage them into little pockets and try and knock them out in, say, sort of 15 to 30-minute sessions, whatever works for you. And then the next section, the important non-urgent, that tends to be the one that we need to actively focus on the most, because it's important, but because it's not urgent, we tend to always put it off. And these will be things like things have to be done, say, on a weekly or on a monthly basis, where you keep thinking, okay, when I've got time, I'll get round to it. But if you don't do it, you will lose out, or it may even become urgent because you've just neglected it. And those tend to be things, in my experience, which will generally improve and develop you. So it might be something like, if you've got a business, your 6-month plan, you've got to have a 6-month plan and review, but you might be putting that off because it's not immediately urgent, because you've got a 6-month time frame. However, it's something that's really important, and if you don't do it, it will really affect the growth of your business. That's just one example. Yeah, and the last one is non-urgent, non-important. It's really just what we call downtime or relaxation time. It's really important to take time out for yourself as well, because the mind cannot be working on overdrive all the time. So it's essential to actually take time out to do things that are completely different to your normal working routine as well. So the example I like to give is, because the main problem tends to be that the third category, the important non-urgent, tends to get overtaken mostly by the second category, urgent non-important. I give this analogy. Just imagine you're packing a car boot. The things you want to put in first will always be the large cases, because if you put in the small cases first, you're not going to have space for the large cases. So just see those large cases as your important non-urgent, and make sure you plan those things into your diary first. Now, once you've done that, you will have small spaces around that, and then try and pack in the other things around that. So, and that way, if you're putting in your urgent important first, then your important non-urgent, and then around that, you're planning your urgent non-important and your non-urgent non-important, then you're likely to get everything done. But it's important you pack things in your mind, just like you would in the car boot. Plan your diary in the same way. And again, I put this focus here: maintenance versus development. Some things will just keep you going in the level that you're at, and they tend to use less brain power because they're things you're used to doing. However, there's other things which will be more about your development, where they will help you to improve. They normally require a bit more effort because they're things outside your comfort zone. I think it's important to get a balance between the two. And that's why it's important to actively apportion time to each of them and understand that this is the time I'm spending to keep myself at this level, and this is the time I'm spending to improve and move to the next level.
Yeah, for sure. And we have always to have in mind that these things that are like not important, not urgent, is for a specific area. So like, as you mentioned, take a rest, enjoy time. Sometimes it's important in a whole, if you're looking at life in a whole.
Yes.
But these things, you have to put this matrix in every single part of your life. So work, religion, health, and every single one going to have a different urgent, important thing. With everybody knows what's urgent and important today and next day if you have a deadline. Urgent and not important, like it's where I am really procrastinate a lot. It's like, it's not important to get a treat right now, but I will go there and get a candle bar for me because I'm at my house and everything. So these things comes up with the quarantine, everything changes. The matrix.
Don't worry, it's not just you. We all do it.
We're all doing this. And it's really important that you have in mind is these things you can apply to in the whole life. And then things that are going to be not non-urgent, not important, is something that you have, they're going to be hold you down in your life. But if you're going to be like using this matrix only for your work life and everything, for sure something like taking a vacation will be not important, not urgent, if your stress levels are not affecting your productivity. So then you start to get more important, more urgent, depends about your mental health as well. But yeah, indeed, agree with everything. And good to know that I'm not alone when I'm working, running to get a snack and come back. Right. And then the facts and figures.
Yeah. This is exercise I did for myself some time back. And I thought it was just helpful just because give people a picture. And it certainly helped me to see things from different perspectives. So time is limited, as we know. So we have 160 hours in a week. And I just did a few calculations. If somebody, like, it will vary according to each individual, but if somebody's sleeping 8 hours per day, and I'm incorporating into that just sort of waking up, sort of going to the bathroom, things like that, and working 40 hours a week, again, incorporate into that your travel time, or not, maybe not so much now if you're working from home, but sort of getting your office in order, tidying up, things like that. If you include all of that in itself will take over 100 hours out of that week. So that's a large chunk of time. So left over, you've only got, I think it came to like 100, a little over 100 actually. So about 50 hours left for everything else. So that's why I've put there, don't waste it, because if you're just seeing things in context, generally the way most of us spend our lives, that's probably not unrealistic. If you're spending about eight hours on work and sleep, then that doesn't leave a lot of time for everything else. But you've got to be super organized if you want to do lots of things outside of that. And what I found is even if you spend an hour a day on a particular activity, that's 7 hours in a week, and you can actually make good progress on that. And the other thing is as well, I think, which we tend to underestimate, and this is where coaching really helps as well. Once you start on an activity, it's not just time you spend doing it, you're now engaging your subconscious mind, thinking that that's important for you. So your mind will be continuing to focus on that even after the activity. So it may be by the next time you do that, that will it will help. So, I mean, I've used it myself in terms of writing, because I realized that's something that I'm really interested in. I like to write both about coaching and also even fiction as well. And that's a technique I find quite helpful. When you start off, you start writing, ideas start coming to your head, and then the time you spend between that and your next session, those ideas have already developed, and then it's much easier for you to continue, and that will work for lots of other things as well. So, I mean, I would say this, like, it's very easy to spend that extra hour in bed or that extra hour at work thinking, oh, either I'm tired or I've got work to do. But just looking at those figures, just realize the cost, and just think it's much better spending that extra hour doing something else and just being a little more productive at work, or because you've done more with your day, sleeping more effectively within that time. Obviously, I spoke on one of the other live sessions about sleep cycles as well. So there's other things that you can use to get more out of your sleep in less time. But I think that's really important, and that's something that a practice I adopted a few years ago after just looking at my own approach to work in terms of time management and time recording. I thought, well, I need to do this in other areas as well. And I found it really helped just by leaving work on time and fitting in other activities like going to the gym, meeting people socially, or doing other studies like coaching studies or online seminars. I found it so much more helpful, and in fact, it helped my productivity at work, and it helped me sleep better as well. So again, just linked to that, I'd say find time for the things that you've been putting off. Common things tend to be fitness, socializing, or meeting up with people perhaps you've become disconnected with. Online courses, particularly now in lockdown, it's very easy to access things. Reading, creative writing, cooking, family time, prayer, meditation, all of these things are important to make sure you have a good balanced life, and therefore it's essential to actually make time for them, otherwise they're not going to happen. And another thing I think is really important is to apportion time equally to the different aspects of life. You have the intellectual, the physical, spiritual, your social, and all of those are equally important. You don't want to overemphasize one at the expense of the others. And just perhaps when you're planning your activities, you might want to just either label them or have it in your mind. This falls in this box, this falls in this box, just to make sure you overall as a human being in your life experience, it's balanced, and therefore you have that kind of energy in everything that you do.
Yeah, for sure. And as I told you, we have a well-known tool in the coaching area that is the wheel of life. Yeah. That you split everything. This tool is really, really basic, and every single person have their own way to do it. Even a little bit of different with all the colors, and not exactly calling wheel of life, but the method is pretty well known. And this is pretty much what you have to do. You have to do in a holistic view. If you want to be in balance, if you want to move on and be prosper and then go further without sacrifice the other part of your life, you have to do it in a whole, in a holistic way that you can see every single part and move on. And then understand, okay, I have to allocate time for this, time for that. Is something that is the reality. Time is limited, as you said. But the good thing is, it's exactly the same limit every day, every month, every year. So you can plan yourself.
Yeah, we're all in the same boat.
Yeah, everybody in the same boat. Everybody have exactly the same hours. No one have more hours in order. People have more access to other tools and things that can be more effective. But you know your reality. You know how much you want to allocate time for here, there, and there. And for sure, have a spare time in the end of the week or in the end of the month to, if you take more time in this or take more time in that, or if you want, as I know from a movie, say, doce far niente, that means the pleasure of doing nothing.
Okay.
Just to stay down, say, okay, I'm going to relax now and do nothing. Not even meditate or anything, it's just do nothing. If you want to allocate time for it, you can do it as well. Why not? Right. And well, as we're saying, right, being productive in the time they are allocated with this, isn't it?
Yeah, this is slightly a linked point to time management. I thought it might be helpful just to talk about this as well. So, yeah, one of the factors in terms of being productive is not just about how much time you have, but about your physiology as well. So it's important to look after yourself. Again, this could be a topic for another whole session in itself, but it's important as well. One thing I always focus on is always to get regular exercise, to eat good food and sleep well, because those three things in themselves will just really help your energy levels. Quite often when we're stressed, we're overworked, we tend to those are the areas that tend to lose out. However, looking after yourself will actually help you in terms. So, for example, Stephen Covey, he's in his 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, he speaks about sharpening the saw. And the point is that if you keep yourself in a good state to be able to deal with things, you can actually deal with the challenges that life throws your way. But if you're not looking after yourself, then it doesn't matter how hard you're trying, you're just not in a state where you can deal with it. If you haven't had enough rest, if you're not eating what kind of food, and you don't have those kind of that endorphin rush from exercising and that kind of that energetic state of mind and the health benefits as well. And this is linked as well, handling stress and emotional state, being present. Again, if you look after yourself physically, that will help you emotionally as well. If you're just getting overworked, again, you're not spending time equally in those 4 different areas, chances are you're probably going to get stressed. It's going to affect you emotionally, and therefore you're going to be less present in what you're doing now, and probably focusing more on, oh, look, I should have done this earlier, or I didn't do that, or I've got to do this tomorrow. And again, you're not really appreciating the value of life. So I'm preparing a post today as well, which will hopefully soon go out on our Instagram page, but just about appreciating the not just the destination, but the journey itself. And again, I think it's very relevant to that. Where we can very easily just get lost in terms of, I've got to do this, got to do this, and not actually enjoy the process of doing it. So that's also really important. I've spoken already of the effect of physiology on mindset. We use this a lot in NLP as well, making sure that your physiology is adjusted in a way that it inspires a resourceful state where you can actually be productive and respond in the way that you'd like to. And quite often there's a direct relationship between the two. You hear people speaking about standing up, being active, taking a deep breath. Things like that do really help, because your mind will then adjust to that. I've given a few examples here. Getting dressed for work. I mean, some people have struggled to adjust to the home working routine, and some people actually prefer that act of actually getting dressed to put yourself in a different mindset. A few examples from my martial arts as well. So in martial arts as well, quite often state management is really important, that you're not overcome by your anger or your aggression, that you can show aggression when you need to and switch it off when you don't. So at the beginning of a fight, you'll normally greet your opponent, you'll be very respectful, and then you adopt the fighting stance, you'll get the call, and then you'll then adopt a fighting stance, and you'll change your mindset. Now I'm in a fight. And again, when the fight ends, there's normally some sort of routine that you do just to tell yourself and the other opponent, look, now the fight is over, I'm changing my mindset. And one thing I really liked is in kendo is that before we start the combat phase, we have a meditation phase where we just sit in our armor, we adopt a certain pose, and we meditate for about 2-3 minutes, both at the start and the end of the session, where we just focus ourselves and change our mindset, thinking, look, now I'm in the kendo mindset, this is how I need to be focused, think about your techniques, and then at the end of the session you do exactly the same thing, and then you'll think about what you learned from the session. Again, in Taekwondo, we had the same things as well. We had certain maxims that we would say at the beginning and end of each training sessions, which just reminds you of putting yourself in that right mindset, and that can work for other areas of life as well. So in NLP, we talk a lot about modeling as well. If one technique works in one area, you can use it in another area as well to be effective. So I think those are just some good examples there. I did a post on this last week as well about the Pareto principle, or more commonly known as the 80-20 rule. But the thing is, quite often we just don't have time to do everything. So quite often however, the 80-20 rule says that basically 80% of your results will come from 20% of your actions. So it's really important to understand which of your activities will be most beneficial. So say like pick your top 20%. So for example, you spoke about the end of the financial year. So in my profession as a lawyer, towards the end of the financial year, you'll be focusing on which files are going to be concluded, which you can bill within that financial year. So at that stage, you're not going to be able to bill everything, but you'll be focusing on those large value files where, for example, 5 large value files will help you meet your target compared with sort of 20 low value files, which will probably be less. So that's a good example of that. In business, it may be, look, which are my best clients that I want to focus on. And if you've got limited time socially, you might want to think, okay, well, which people do I want to hang out with the most, who will be the most beneficial to me, or whose company I enjoy the most. And another thing as well, just looking at last week, is the Pomodoro technique, which talks about just alternating the way you do things. So you, and whatever activity it is, you focus on it for 25 minutes, then you have a 5-minute break, and then you repeat that process, and then you do that for about 2 hours. So that's quite effective. Things like revision, or particularly academic study, where your mind can't focus for that amount of time. So you break it up into sort of 20-minute sessions, have a short break, then go have another 20-25-minute session, another short break, and then after 2 hours you have a longer break. And that way you're just getting the most out of yourself in the most productive way, where you're getting things done, but in a way that you're engaged and focused, and you're not burning yourself out either.
Yeah, that's really, really important, to not burn yourself out.
Mm-hmm.
Well, a lot of things that I have to say, but I think the next slide is the questions, isn't it?
I can't
think,
remember if you can remind me.
Yeah, just before we move on to these things, I just want to just say a few things. Sure. Pretty much when it comes to these physical factors and everything, everybody have the conditions in their lives. Could be like state condition, or depending on how long is your family, how far are you from work, the tools that you have available or not, or could be a physical condition or a mental condition. Everybody have different types of conditions, and then we are here to try to help the best. So like me, I have a condition that I cannot run 10 kilometers in a full speed, or the speed that I would like to keep it, because my knees cannot support my weight. But at the same time, I can do something that is, okay, I can run 2 kilometers, rest, walk, 2 kilometers, rest. Okay. Total will be like 5 kilometers for me, and keep my cardio is the way that I can do. And you have your limits. And the 80-20 rule is pretty much the priorities, and see that most of you do will come from 20% of the whole.
Yes.
The more that you get from the profit is from 20% of the whole. But everything, the whole is the whole. You don't have, if you only have, oh, let's scrap this 80%, let's keep only this 20%, you're going to enjoy only 20% of the 20%. So
yeah,
it's never going to be 100%. So this 80% is good to keep the 20% as the maximum.
Yeah.
And then you're going to be how capable are you. If you want to increase and be more productive, you have to increase the whole,
of course,
everything. And then comes time management, and comes like the matrix that we just spoke about it. That's the why we have the 4 places.
Yeah.
And about, I think one thing that I would like to add here, that you spoke about martial arts and everything, pretty much a lot of mind setting and things like this. But one thing that I always like to say, and recently I'm studying, it comes a lot in the topics of talks that I have with other people, is we normally agree that human beings are rational animals. And we are indeed. We can think about it, we can rationalize, and we can instigate and think and everything. But we have to understand that before the mental capacity that we have as well the emotions, that is a chemical reactions. And the chemical reactions can dictate your thoughts, so the rational part. But the rational part not exactly can dictate what is your hormone part, and then the harmonies, and then the feelings that kind of come from it. We can softly do it, but it's not high impacted in the way that they are so the feelings. So when we are young, we have like this urgent to do something and everything, or different feelings, and then you mood change it, you eat something, you do a different diet, you start to think different. And then where it comes from normally is from the emotions. but I think this is a really, really, really big topic that we're going to have to let for another day, like how emotions and physical things interfere the way you think. And then, right, questions and reflections. I think that's a lot that we can talk about it. I don't want if you want to start with something. And as a time management, we still have a few minutes.
Yes. Yeah, no, just to touch on what you said about the link between sort of our thoughts and emotions. I mean, like you said, it's a big topic, but in NLP, you look a lot at what you call the internal filters that you have in your mind and the way that your brain processes what's happening externally. So if you can start to understand what your filters are, why you think the way that you do, it's also possible to change them so that different external factors will actually lead to a different emotional response. There's another theory as well which says that all emotion is based on thought in the moment rather than any external factor. So again, if you understand what your thought is about something externally, then you can understand the relationship. But like you said, that's a very big topic, so perhaps we could have a whole session on that next time.
Yes, for sure. I think
but
I
yeah,
totally agree with that.
Yeah, no, it's a very big topic, but very interesting one. But yeah, I always like to at the end just put a question out to people just to get them thinking. So I mean, what I've said is, what new activity could you do, and when could you commit to doing it? Daily, weekly, monthly. So again, like I said at the beginning, just understand what the right time frame is. Is it something to do on a daily basis, or what's more realistic, weekly or monthly? And also just committing sometimes just to one activity and bringing that into your routine can actually make a big difference and can encourage you to do other things as well once that becomes part of your routine. But otherwise, I don't know if you had any particular queries or comments on any of the points I made. I know it's quite a big topic. It's quite an interesting one as well.
Yeah, definitely. If you have any question, anything that you want to bring up to us, leave a comment here on the video or talk to us inbox. If you want to, these things apply for areas in the life. These things apply for KPIs in your company. These things apply for time management and the way that you deal with it. And I want to get from most of the 80-20 rule. If you want to know more about this thing that we are talking here, that we're just saying, it's really, really small. We have our Instagram as well. There you can go there. We have posts that we talk more about it. As well, we have our Facebook page. And you always can get in touch with us, in contact, just drop a message. Have me and Siddiq as coaches. And let me just finish this thing and come back to us. As well, I was saying, so have me and Siddiq here as our coaches from the coaching direction. We have other people in the team. If you want to go to our website and check it out, the website is still under construction, but it's there live if you want to check it with the people or people in our team. It's not everybody there, have others, but please get in touch with us. We're going to be able to help you further. And just to finish with a little bit, I think this thing to what you can do in a weekly basis, and you see you can manage, that's perfect. But always challenge yourself to a limit, like, this is going to be tough. I can do it, but it's going to be tough. If it's something that you're really wanting and is already too difficult, get in touch with us. Get in touch with any coaching, get in touch with people that can help you. And do the matrix for every single aspect of your life. And as we said in the beginning, enjoy the process of learning, not just to go the goal, but the journey. It's something really, really important that people sometimes forget about it. Right, Siddiq, anything else to say before we finish?
Yeah, just to reinforce some of the points you said, yes, please, people from the audience and those who are listening in, please do get in touch with any queries or comments. If you can't attend the live session, then these sessions are recorded, so you can catch up on them later on. It might be at one point in your life, you might think this isn't relevant, but something might happen later on and think, actually, that was quite useful, and then you might want to revisit it. So all the things, all the live sessions are recorded on our Facebook page, and we post on a weekly basis as well. So sometimes that's if you're short of time, it's just interesting to just see something there and just get you thinking. And we do have a lot of other people involved in the coaching direction as well. And one thing I find quite useful is just to see the different perspective that people have, because we're not all the same. We all have our own slightly different approaches, and sometimes I often learn things from things that other people say that I wouldn't have thought of myself. So I find that really helpful. So yeah, by all means, do stay tuned in, and hopefully we can help you through this sort of difficult time in lockdown, after lockdown, and hopefully beyond as well.
Yes, that's perfect. Once again, Sidik, thank you very much to be here with me. I hope this lockdown start to melt and solve it, so we can go and do our meetings again and start to have all the meetings with all the people soon. But until then, we always have the internet as an amazing tool. Once again, I would like to thank you that are watching us so far. Leave a comment if you have a specific thing that you want us to talk about it. Just write in the comments. Why not talk about something that you're willing us to do? All right. So that's me here today. Thank you, everybody. Get tuned with us. Get in touch. Our Instagram page and our Facebook page and our website as well. Right, guys? Thank you very much and have a great week. Bye-bye.
Bye.